This is Cher, and I'm here with Jason and Rob. Guys, if you had to describe this podcast in 5 words or less, what would you say?
I'm going to go with Wile E. Coyote guzzling gasoline.
I'm thinking climate change, diarrhea, hurricane.
Are you serious? Maybe I should do this thing on my own.
Fine. It's a show about how to stay sane in a world where there's too many people consuming too much stuff and the planet can't take it anymore.
You had me at diarrhea.
Caution, if you're allergic to 4-letter words, you might want to try a different podcast.
Hey, have you guys ever been to the South Pacific?
Nope.
No, I've seen the movie, though. Actually, I haven't.
The musical?
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
All right, well, I haven't done that, but I've been to the South Pacific a number of times when I was a research botanist. It's glorious. But
You wanted to get there before it all went underwater, right?
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's still floating. But
I didn't know those islands float. That's incredible.
Don't you understand anything about geology, man?
No,
I'll talk
clearly
to you
not.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. But I never got to a place called Vanuatu, and I wanted to, but never got there.
That sounds like a good song. Wanted to, Vanuatu.
Like a Beach Boys song.
Paradise.
Yeah.
They've got like one of those volcanoes that you can look into it and it's bubbling like lava. You know, there's only a
Like
few-
all the time? It's just like...
yeah. There's like one of the few places on Earth.
Nice.
But the other thing it's known for is it has it continues to have what are these called cargo cults. You guys heard of these before?
They
No.
love cargo pants?
It's like the 80s, right? Well, cargo cults kind of emerged when South Pacific people who had this culture of sort of reciprocal gift giving, and these big men would try to give more than other people, and that's how would they get social status.
Oh, so their social status was about giving more, not taking more.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a little different from modern times, isn't it?
But it was still kind of materialistic in a sense. So they would try to acquire so they could give, and that would give them the social status.
Interesting.
Now, here's what happened.
That's what, by the way, that's what Jeff Bezos is doing, right? He's just trying to accumulate billions of dollars so he can give it away.
I hope so.
Yeah, what a good guy.
But imagine World War II, and there's a war going on in the South Pacific. And suddenly there are these airplanes, and this is back in the 40s, and there really wasn't like global air traffic at that point. So these folks didn't know what was going on, but there's these giant birds in the sky, and suddenly things started floating out of them and landing on their beaches.
Like what?
Cargo.
Cargo, I get it.
Right.
Okay.
And so they would find these boxes, and you'd open them up, and there'd be cargo pants
or what about that Men at Work CD, Cargo, from the 80s, right? No,
Wow, that's time travel.
We're 40 years off here.
But it's like industrial manufacturing and the abundance of sort of the fossil fuel era. Suddenly, the accoutrements of that for armies landed in these places.
So this was like about base building
Yes.
on these islands.
Yeah, so the Japanese, the Americans would just sort of like...
Accidentally drop these
No,
things?
no,
Or
they'd be like,
intentionally?
we need to set up operations here,
Right.
in order to have a base to repel the invasion or whatever.
But before they could get there and start setting it up, these guys would find the box on the beach, and then they would get they'd get all the stuff.
Stuff would happen, and they were just like, wow. But the military was there, and they would interact with these people, but then if suddenly they left, right?
The military left.
Right. The war's over. They're gone.
Right.
And these people who are just like, bring it back.
Where's our cargo?
Where's our cargo?
Where's our cargo? What happened to it? Like they didn't understand how this stuff could have been made, where it actually came from. It
came from the sky.
It came from the sky with these giant birds.
Yeah.
And so there was no like education or explanation. There wasn't like an exchange program between like the big man of Vanuatu didn't like get sent to London to understand the Industrial Revolution, right? They were just sort of at a loss. And then they started creating these religions, essentially, what now is termed cargo cults, to try to recreate the scene that led to the arrival of this cargo.
Try to get their cargo back.
Yeah. So they would make mock airports and...
Oh, so they're trying to basically recreate all the conditions that existed that allowed this stuff to come out of the sky.
Wait, were they recreating war conditions?
No, but they would march around and stuff in uniforms and things.
They made themselves uniforms?
Yeah. So you can look online and see all these pictures of John Frum, cargo cult, and all this stuff.
Did it work? Did they get more?
They're
shit
still
out of
waiting.
the sky?
Have faith. Have faith. Right?
Who's John Frum?
I don't know. It was like some mythological U.S. soldier.
Oh, nice.
Probably gave him cigarettes.
Johnny Frum.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the messenger from God.
Right. So that's interesting. It's in anthropologists sort of look at it as sort of this big men culture is trying to bring back the cargo. It's sort of recreating the conditions that led to this extreme materialistic wealth. So, and I kind of feel like, interestingly, this is kind of funny, but and it's absurd to think about from what we know today. But at the same time, I think we're no better.
Oh,
we're no better than the cargo cults.
We're doing the same kind of stuff.
I'd say we're even worse. I mean, they're not destroying their island while practicing their cargo cult. Most of what we do, we're wrecking the place as we do it.
Yeah.
Well, we are. I think you're right, because we are sort of hoping for answers from the sky. I think for technology or something to sort of fix our problems.
Yeah.
I definitely think that that's true when it comes to like climate change. Like if you think about it, we sort of know now that climate change is a real thing. There are obviously some folks going to continue to deny
what kind of craziness is this?
Until the seas, go over their heads, and they will still deny it. But putting aside those folks, I think it's pretty evident to most people that this is a real thing.
Yeah.
And now we're in this oh shit moment. Like, what are we going to actually do about this, right? So we're waiting for this sort of magical solution to fall out from the sky.
Right.
Yeah, they're going to think of something.
They will think of something.
They will think of something.
Yeah, the big one is what folks in our circles call negative emissions technologies.
Yes.
That's basically saying, okay, well, fuck, we put way too much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We got to ratchet them down. And let's be honest, we're going to keep burning this stuff for a little while.
It's really good to burn it.
It is great to burn. So if that's the case, and we got to figure out how to get it out of the atmosphere.
Now, I think some of that's needed, but we just, our models are trying to rely too much on this. I've done some work looking into this. And so you want me to go over some of the negative emissions technology, what they talk about? So basically, like, there's stuff that's more biologically related that you can sort of imagine doing, like planting trees, right? So reforestation, exactly. So you basically plant trees and they store carbon in their wood.
No way that stuff could ever get back into the atmosphere.
Well, there's problems with some of the biological mechanisms is that they're not necessarily that permanent, right?
Well, we're here in the Pacific Northwest. Pretty much the whole West the last few years has been on fire.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, just, you're more of a scientist than I am, Jason, but seems like that would release some CO2.
That's the problem with the forestation programs is that no one's sure how permanent they would be. The other one they talk about is land management is the term, but really what that means is changing agricultural techniques so that soils are don't release carbon, but soils store carbon. So right now, most of the way people are farming actually is burning carbon out of the soil. But if you do things like cover cropping and
because they're chilling it, right? They're turning
it too much.
The soil over, and that releases carbon dioxide.
Exactly. So
if we do things that cost more money.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think there's a lot to this. Like, this is one of the things that actually, if we do it, would be really good in many ways. Like, you could probably prevent erosion, improve infiltration of water in the soil, reduce flood risk, store a lot of carbon, reduce your need for fertilizer inputs. It'd be great. It's just that you've got to then change sort of cultural practices of farmers around the world very rapidly. But it's possible to do. So that's one of the ones that's probably one of the better ones.
It probably gets less support because it's more practical, right?
It's very practical.
And maybe hard to profit from.
There's no profit because you can't sell as much stuff.
So give me the cargo cult ones. Give me some of them.
Well, once you start getting into the technical sort of things, there's things like seeding the ocean with iron, especially the polar oceans, and that's supposed to cause like algal phytoplankton blooms, and some of that may settle out. But then there's not how does that impact the food web in the oceans? Not that sure.
Why do I just picture a bunch of people from Texas firing their guns into the ocean? There, now we've seeded it with iron.
I think it's ships broadcasting stuff and planes flying over. I'm not sure, but Then there's what they call enhanced weathering. And this is interesting because basically one of the ways that carbon dioxide levels drop is that rocks sort of break up into their mineral constituents, and they can react with carbon dioxide and form what's called carbonates. And so limestone is the most important carbonate we're familiar with, okay? And we make lime out of it, and very common. But the problem is it takes place very slowly. And we're putting out carbon dioxide so fast that these technologies are trying to find ways of speeding up this sort of process.
So we're looking for super accelerated rock making.
Rock weathering, and then changing the rock from a form like usually a silicate form, like calcium silicates or magnesium silicates, into calcium carbonates and magnesium carbonates. Okay. And then, but a lot of this stuff then relies on like carbon capture and sequestration. So that is the idea that you somehow move carbon dioxide you capture into like below ground chambers.
All we need is everybody should be handed a bellows at some point, and they just suck the air out with the bellows, and then they put it in the ground, and then just blow it out. Yeah, and you got to do like 10 of those a day. It's good for your health. It's good for the earth.
That's all we
problem
have to do?
solved.
10?
Yeah.
I think we could do that.
Well, maybe we should do the math on that. We each need to do 4.7 billion per hour.
Well,
that may be a little tricky.
And by the way, you won't be able to breathe after everyone's done this. There will be no air.
But this is the thing: is like we're like.
I'm sorry. I'm patenting that technique. That's mine. I own the bellows technique. If you want to use it, just send me I don't know, a few $1,000,000.
You better file a patent, buddy. Yeah. Someone else is getting on it right now.
Well, that's part of the problem, is that none of these technologies make money. And so
mine does.
Well,
the bellows technique.
Some of them they're trying to, where they essentially make like fake, like synthetic fuels, right? If you
that's my favorite. Yeah. You know, last year, a few months ago, there was a lot of media coverage about this supposed technology of capturing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and then through a conversion process, turning it into gasoline.
Yeah.
I mean, how beautiful is that, right?
Air to gas.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about circular economy, man. That is a perfect circle. Right. We're just going to drive our cars, burn some gasoline, put the CO2 in the atmosphere.
Right. Put it right back in the car.
And then, exactly, then we suck it out of the atmosphere, turn it back into gasoline, put it in our cars, and just happy motoring down the road.
It's a perpetual motion machine.
Well, this is the way the press releases it. It sounds like it's easy and it's a perpetual motion machine. So what's the problem?
Yeah, so actually, I remember when that piece came out, I sent it to, because I think it was like in the Atlantic and in a bunch of other places. I sent it to David Fredley, who's a fellow at Post Carbon Institute. One of our fellows, his day job is actually working in Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, one of the big, energy labs in the U.S. And he's the smartest guy about energy stuff that I know. And I sent it to him. I was like, what's the deal with this,
Right.
And he did some math on it. And he and Richard Heimberg, who we work with, kind of wrote it up. And they just looked a little bit about, the energy inputs in this process, right? So one of the things that people never talk about is what does it take to actually power these kinds of chemical processes, right? So... And I'm just going to kind of quote a little bit about what they wrote. They basically said, if you just look at the fans, you need fans to be turning,
to move the air.
Yeah, to do this stuff. Well, if you moved air, let's say you extracted, say 1 billion tons of CO2, which is, to give that perspective, that's like less than 1/40th of the CO2 that we emit every year. Right?
We're talking globally.
Globally, yeah. So 1 billion tons, right?
Yeah.
That would require 61 terawatt hours. Now, these are numbers that nobody fucking understands, right? But that's more than all of the solar power that we generate, in the United States in a year, right? On average. Now, if we were going to say, okay, well, remember, that's less than 1/40th of the emissions that we're putting out every year. If we're going to try to do all current emissions, right? That would require about the equivalent of 75% of all of the electricity consumption in the United States, right?
Yeah.
That's just for the fans.
Right.
Just for the fans in this process,
fans, nothing
right?
else.
Doesn't count all the energy that needs to go into
It's like a rock
pumps.
band. We do it for the fans.
Right, exactly. So you think about the pumps and the motors and the compressors, all the other parts of it, and the compressor itself.
And the machine, and just the cost and the energy that went into building the whole infrastructure.
Sure. So The compressor, right? Okay. That's just the fan. The compressor itself requires twice the energy needed for the fans, right?
Right.
You start doing the math on this process.
So when
that's before you even get to doing the conversion to, the gasoline, right?
Right.
So when you start saying we'll think of something or they'll think of something, it's getting to, in my mind, to be they'll think of something really stupid or they'll think of something that can't be done.
It sounds great. I mean,
yes.
Twitter or whatever, there's all this talk about, well, this is amazing. Maybe it's too good to be true. Maybe it's too good to be true.
Yeah. There's a lot of wishful thinking going on, right? I mean, people are scared.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I was recently doing the math. I saw a news release recently that also got me thinking and doing the math, and it was about it was again this thing where you take a rock, this is a magnesium silicate, and you somehow get it into this facility that has this substrate that helps it convert it to magnesium carbonate or magnesite.
And you told me this is the gold standard of negative emissions.
Well, what's lovely about this is that once you turn it into a carbonate form, it's very stable. Like unlike, soils or forests that can burn and re-release it, or pumping it into some underground chamber where there might be leakage. This is rock. This is rock solid carbon storage. It's the ultimate.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to undo, right?
Hard to undo. But of course, that means it's hard to do.
Right.
Okay. And that was pretty good. Yeah. I like that. Okay. Anyhow, so.
Way to compliment yourself there.
He set me up.
Me and Jason got this thing
I got this thing Okay. So.
Call and response.
Right.
Yeah. So here, I did some simple math on this. So essentially what you read the literature on this and you gotta mine essentially, if you mine 2 tons of magnesium silicate rock, okay, which you can find basaltic rock and things like that. And you bring it to this facility that will then, you got to crush it too.
Right, you got to get it to the facility.
You got to get
Maybe you got the facility right there.
Yeah, well, co-locate. Let's co-locate.
I can't think of a day where I haven't moved 2 tons of rock.
So you do that somehow, and you crush it up, and then you get it to react, and then you create this magnesium carbonate rock. So you go from rock to rock, but this other rock now has a bunch of carbonate in it. So
that's what we want.
That's what we want.
Taking it out of the air,
exactly.
Right?
Carbon dioxide, carbonate, they're kind of related, but carbonate's a solid form.
Right. And then you move that somewhere.
Yeah, but then you got to move this magnesium carbonate out of the way so that you can make room for the new magnesium silicate.
I think we just build more McDonald's with those rocks, right?
Right. So I mean, that's part of what they talk about. Can we do something with this rock we've just?
Hey, we can make Yosemite taller. It'll be great. We'll make El Cap bigger. We'll make Half Dome higher. It'll be awesome.
Right. So so you mentioned 30. We have 38 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year we emit right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Annually. Yeah.
Annually. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you got to react. You got to take 2 tons of this rock to react with 1 ton of CO2. But then you've got the rock that's left over. That's another 2 tons approximately that you got to move away. So you got to move.
That's 4 tons.
You got to move 4 tons of rock to take care of 1 ton of CO2.
Sure.
And so we make 38 billion tons of that a year.
38 billion tons of CO2 a year.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we got to move 4 times that in rock.
Right. If we're to take care of current year emissions.
Okay.
With this one,
that's just the rocks that we're moving. That's not even the energy that goes into this whole process.
I'm not talking about energy. Why would you talk about energy?
Yeah, no, energy's not important.
Right.
Okay. So give us the math. 4 times 38
billion is some big number, right?
I like the way you do math. That's great.
Almost 160 billion, right?
Okay.
Almost,
yeah, it's 152 billion.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm like, who knows what that means, right?
152 billion. Oh, yeah.
Tons.
I can totally picture it.
Right. Okay, so you ever been to Grand Coulee Dam?
Yeah.
It's
impressive.
It's a big dam. It's out in eastern Washington and stuff.
It's big.
It's big. It was like the largest structure ever built by people for a long time until China did something. And so it is about 24 million tons of concrete. Million. So that's a thousandth of a billion.
Right. 1 million. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you divide the 24 million tons into the 152 billion tons, you get 6,300 Grand Coulee Dam's worth of material per year.
Right. That we have to move.
Right.
Yeah.
If this technology, right, to take care of current emissions.
Well, let's be real. I mean, emissions are going to grow, so we need more than that many.
Everything
Grand
has
Coulee.
to grow,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, I mean, it's a little unfair to try to
put all those Grand Coulee dams.
Well, I'm not saying that we should
stack them up. One on top. Then you'll get
put Trump's name on the top.
Right.
That would make him happy.
Or think about it. If you stack them up, then you've got a wall that you can climb into outer space.
Or a wall to keep all the Mexicans out.
Oh, right.
So many uses. But, I mean, it's not fair to put the entire burden of emissions onto one technology.
Sure.
But we're talking one, it's absurd, and it's of orders of magnitude not going to work. And you'd have to have many technologies of this scale, like thousands of this scale, to make any difference. And we don't. We only have a handful we're talking about.
And you were saying that that's like the best example, right, in terms of it being stable and a long-term solution to take carbon dioxide.
They like the ability to inject carbon dioxide into caverns. That's one of the favored.
Right.
But this is one of the big ones, right, where but really, only expect, if this gets scaled, they only expect 1 billion tons a year to be offset. And even, like you're saying, like 1/40th, right? Like with what you were talking about. And that's a tremendous amount. I mean, that's just enormous industry to be created for something that doesn't have an end product. You guys are joking about like, oh, we'll make a wall out of it, or but that's the problem, is that nobody knows what to do with it. No one knows what to do with it. You're taking rock and you're making rock. And this is
I want to rock.
Oh man, we just went to the Twisted Sister. That's painful.
Well, let me. If you'll indulge me, there's a quote. I was reading this. The president of the European Academies of Science Advisory Council, and it's like Thierry Courvoisier. That's
a beautiful pronunciation.
I hope I pronounced it.
He probably pronounces it like Courvoisier.
Yeah. Wait. Anyhow, here's what he said. This was in February of 2018. Quote: having achieved a global consensus at the Paris meeting of the UN Convention on Climate Change in December 2015, there may be a tendency to think the problem of climate change is finally on the way to being solved. This may be one reason for the lack of recognition in the public and political debate of the severity of the emission reductions required to achieve the target of restricting warming to within 2 degrees of pre-industrial levels, let alone the 1.5 degrees Celsius aspiration enshrined in the Paris Agreement. Now, this is the beautiful part of this quote right here.
Okay, so I'm waiting expectantly. I need some beauty.
One factor possibly contributing to a lack of urgency may be the belief that somehow, and he put quotes here, technology will come to the rescue. The present report shows that such expectations may be seriously over-optimistic. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change future scenarios allow Paris targets to be met by deploying technologies that remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. However, putting a hypothetical, this is hysterical actually, if you think about this.
So
guy,
this
right?
guy would say it.
Yeah. However, putting a hypothetical technology into a computer model of future scenarios is rather different than researching, developing, constructing, and operating such a technology at the planetary scale required to compensate for inadequate mitigation.
You mean it's a lot easier to put numbers into a computer than actually move this many, billions tons of rock?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's all kind of great computer games you can play and pretend are a model of how things are going to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that guy's such a doom-saying Chicken Little, sky is falling nutter. Yeah. Of course technology can help us. Let's forget about this negative emissions bullshit.
What's wrong?
Let's go to space.
Yeah, well, I mean, if negative emissions aren't going to work, that's our only recourse. Right.
That's what Elon Musk is doing.
We got to go to space.
Look, we know that we are damaging the life support systems of this planet, which we were evolved to live on and breathe on. I mean, you pop out of your mom's... You're born.
I don't want to go there, dude. Come on.
You're born, and you can live. You can breathe. You can.
Wonderful.
So, of course, once we've wrecked this, let's go colonize a place that doesn't have an atmosphere, that is the wrong temperature to survive, that doesn't have soil. Yeah, because that's going to be easy.
Yeah, totally easy, man. All we got to do is just get up in a rocket ship and listen to some good tunes.
Why is that actually? I don't know how seriously people consider the notion of colonizing Mars, but it seems like it's a seductive idea to so many people, and it's the most absurd. Like, why do you think if we are having trouble living where we're meant to live, we're somehow going to have an easier, better time where we're not meant to live?
Well, we're just going to terraform Mars, right? We're going to create like a space elevator that's going to take us there.
We can use the magnesium rock to build that, right?
It probably doesn't take too much energy to get it into space.
I think they're talking about like carbon nanotubes with graphene or something like that.
Well, can't you use negative emission technology to make those? Come on.
We just need Matt Damon's poop and we'll be fine.
Yeah, and grow some potatoes. Look, if we can't, figure out how to get carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere, I'm sure that we can figure out how to go to Mars and terraform that planet so we can breathe the atmosphere there.
Yeah, of course. No problem. No problem.
It'll be easy.
Nanotube straws. Those are like the plastic straws that are floating in the Pacific plastic gyre right now. Can we just use those to build it?
I was doing some math on this too. I'm sorry.
Wow, this is your day for math.
Math is a problem.
But I like your math. You say stuff like 38 billion times 4 is a really big number. So most people like that kind of math.
If anyone got a calculator, can you help me out with this? Open that up.
I've got a phone here.
This is simple math, okay? So 80 million, about 80 million people a year. So one of the, if you look on if you Google why go to space, what are the rationale for going to space? One of the things that often pops up is so we can relieve pressure on Earth of human population.
Right.
It's a good, it's an argument.
Well, there are a lot of
There's a lot of us here, and we've got it's a relief valve. Relief valve, right? So
don't worry about the idea of stop having so many kids.
No, let's just start shuttling off the planet. So let's do some quick math.
Okay.
All right. 80 million people a year are over replacement right now. So we add about 80 million to the population
every year. That's
births over deaths.
Births over death. Okay. So type in 80 million.
I did it. Look at that, 80 million.
Okay, divide it by, please, 365.
The number of days in a year.
Number of days a year.
Okay.
How many is that?
219,178.
Okay, that's how many people a day have to get off planet.
Okay.
Just to keep our population
stable.
Flat.
We've got to somehow shoot off 200,000 something people. So let's do that by hour. How many hours? Let's do that by hour.
Divide by 24.
Yeah, by 24.
Okay.
Let's figure this out.
Per hour. 9,132 people per hour.
Okay, per hour. Okay. Let's go divide by 60. Let's make it, let's get a lower number here.
By
this
minutes.
is too big.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're down to 152 people per minute shot off the planet.
Okay, so the space shuttle,
cool.
The space shuttle could take 8 people up at a time. That was its max. All right, right now,
it wasn't doing this every hour. By the way.
No. The Russians right now, the capsule that goes up and services the space station.
Yeah. Surely it's more. They got
3.
Okay, great.
But let's going backwards.
But we're going to work on this, okay? We're going to improve things. Let's say 10. Say 10 at a shot.
Look,
okay?
the magnesium carbonate magic elevator is going to get at least 152 people a minute.
So if we do 10 so let's do 10 a shot, right? So that's 15 a minute. We need 15 launches a minute to break even here. And then where the fuck are they going to go?
Every minute of every hour of every day.
Of every day, all day.
All day, every day.
It's like a treadmill, though. It's to run to stand still. Right?
Yeah, right.
That's just to deal with how many new people are being added to the planet every year.
Yeah. Right. And where the hell are they going to go? So
who cares, man? Let's just send them out into space.
Bye-bye.
What does a rocket run on? I mean, is there any emissions
like hydrogen
associated with this
hope.
stuff?
It's hope. Yeah. There's a certain gas.
We're gonna fire hope rockets.
Well, it's something like $2,500 per pound right now is the cost to send something into space.
What if there was?
We need to send our latest people then.
What if there was somebody at the destination?
Brand new babies.
What if there was somebody there where these people are going, and when they arrived, they had to tell them why they were there?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They're like, no thanks. Why don't you go back?
But that's what's crazy. It's like we think it's a solution, but it's more like if it. Did you see the movie Elysium?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
No.
Right. Oh, well, it was
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon was in it. Yeah.
You know, very rich people are in this like beautiful little space colony, and everyone it's all screwed.
Earth
down.
went to shit. The wealthy people managed to get themselves off the planet. They're living in some biodome floating in space, and it's like this idyllic little bubble that they're living in, looking down at the shithole that's been left behind.
Which is the vision of Asgardia, by the way.
Asgardia? What's Asgardia?
Well, it's a nation. It's what do they call themselves? The Space Kingdom.
The Space Kingdom.
The Space Kingdom?
Oh, it's a real thing. Look it up.
What do you mean it's a real thing?
It's a real thing. Well,
there's a Space Kingdom?
There's
Population 0?
Well, they've got like a couple 100,000 people who have signed up to be members of their space nation.
Did they have to pay? Is there
No,
they're volunteering to go out into space?
Well, they're members now, and they're like electing, and they're in constitution. But eventually, someday, they're getting ready. So
at least it's a representative government.
They're getting ready today, so that when like the Elysium ship type thing is up there,
they get to go first.
They get to go first.
Smart.
But there's like a couple.
Are they actually building the Elysium thing?
Well, they got like one satellite up or something.
Nice.
Like a little thing.
Sounds a little cargo cultish.
Well, that's the thing, right? Are we any better?
I mean, here we are making fun of sort of these technological solutions, right? That people tend to resort to as like, they'll think of something, right? We have that on the flip side. We deal with that a lot at PCI, where we have, I think we help people kind of do a reality check on some of this techno-optimism stuff. But sometimes we get people to give us a kind of a different version of that. They'll think of somethingism.
Okay.
Like, I swear to God, I can't tell you how many emails I got from people who say, if we just legalized hemp production,
right?
Hemp, we could use hemp for everything.
Right.
We can make clothes out of it. We can make houses out of it. We could use it for fuel. I mean, hemp is it, right?
We can smoke it.
We could smoke it. Yeah. I mean, hemp is like this magical solution. If we just unleashed it, right, then it would fix all our problems.
If it mellows us out enough, we might just not need as much. I mean,
there's an interesting argument there. You know what I mean? No, but they're talking about you could use this as material for everything.
Think how much more food we're going to have to grow if everybody's smoking marijuana all the time.
That's true. So, I think people tend to want to believe that there's going to be some magic solution.
Yeah. It
either exists below our feet or exists, it's going to come from the sky somehow. It's going to be delivered to us,
Yeah.
And what that really tells me is that people are scared.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that somebody's going to fucking figure this thing out.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the root of they'll think of somethingism.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing, but I want to have the problem solved.
Well, it's politically very expedient, of course, right? You don't have to do anything if they will think of something to take care of it all, right? There's no need to address the real problem, the fact that we're an ecological overshoot. We're too big. One of my favorite books. You guys read the book Overshoot by William Catton?
Yeah.
All right. Chapter 11, by the way, goes into cargo cults and stuff, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
He kind of reminded me of this, of that chapter when I was thinking about this show. And we have to shrink and we have to reduce our take of planetary resources. There's no getting around that fact. But we will come up with anything, any excuse, any faith, any grasping at straws to avoid dealing with that reality. And it reminds me of what that professor said, that the guy I quoted from the European Academy's Science Advisory Council, right? One factor possibly contributing to a lack of urgency may be the belief that somehow technology will come to the rescue. Yeah. The guy's right. It's a mess.
Well, we have created an economic system and a culture that says these things are going to be delivered to us, right?
Right.
You don't have to build your new iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Apple's building it for you, and they're going to launch it, and make a big noise about it, and then you can go to the store or buy it online,
And it just happens. It's almost like the people in Vanuatu couldn't comprehend how this stuff was made. They didn't know the science. They didn't understand that it was all based upon a one-time flourish of fossil fuel extravaganza. And neither do we, though. Like, we don't understand. This is a one-time thing, this ability to just like launch ourselves into space. The 600 or so people that have ever gone to space, by the way.
Right.
Ever. The most we've put into space in 1 year is 63.
Well, we'll be doing more than that every 3
minute.
hours,
Yeah.
every 3 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so we don't, that's the thing is we don't understand this, even though we're in this culture.
Hey, they do it in the movies. Therefore, can't we just do it in real life?
You know, there are no limits.
Yeah. I want to.
Don't you remember Ronald Reagan? There are no limits.
I want to drive a DeLorean 88 miles an hour and then go back to 1950, whatever.
Well, what do we
back in time?
Yeah. I don't. What do we do about? I mean, part of what I'm trying to do about this is by throwing out like some basic scientific literacy, a simple calculator that's on everyone's freaking amazing phone, is check this stuff. Like, figure out how to do some math.
Think about how much energy it takes to do some of the things that people are actually talking about.
Technology and energy are different things. It's like in scalability, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just be a little skeptical,
you know? Be a little skeptical.
Yeah, so you're saying do some math.
Right.
Understand a little bit about the laws of thermodynamics.
Oh yeah, and think about like not burning so much shit all the time.
You mean maybe
scale it back?
Yeah, scale it back a little bit. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do some math.
Now
scale it back. No, you're not going to get elected that way.
Hey, you guys want to get in the car? We can go down and buy ourselves some burgers.
Can we get in a truck instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's use my truck. All right. That's our show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast, and while you're at it, rate or review it at iTunes. That really helps get it in front of more people. To learn more, visit postcarbon.org/crazytown. And if you want to actually learn something instead of listening to us bozos, you should check out Post Carbon Institute's Think Resilience course. It's 4 hours, $20, and will seriously change the way you see the world. Catch you next time on the mean streets of Crazytown.
Let's take a deep breath, everybody.
Okay.
I want to just put good feelings out to the world because it's kind of rough right now out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a shitstorm. It could all just unwind. And one of our sponsors, the Singularity Syndicate, has a message, okay? You know about them, right?
Oh, yeah. They're the best.
Okay, they're like, hold it together, okay? We need a little more time. Just give us a 2040, for God's sake. Just hold it together to 2040, okay? Please.
Why 2040?
That's when we'll hit singularity, okay?
Oh, yeah, right.
I can't wait. I want to have my consciousness uploaded.
Yeah,
So we could just fuck all after 2040 because we got a backup.
If we get to 2040, our consciousness will be backed up into the ethereal plane and projected throughout the cosmos so we can be one with it forever. Just keep the shit together.
So keep driving, keep burning, do whatever you want till 2040.
Just don't kill each other too much.
We can do it, people. Let's do it. Let's do it for the Singularity Syndicate.
Woo!